Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this, my friends, is the Aer Slim Pack V2 12-liter here in X-Pac. As the name suggests, this is the second iteration of the original Slim, and it is pretty slim, EDC pack released by Aer, the San Francisco-based manufacturer of a ton of dizzying array of bags, slings, pouches, luggage, and other accessories. And on their product page for this, they describe it as, quote, a slim everyday work pack, which I think is a pretty apt descriptor for what this is. Now, its main claim to fame is that it is very compact and quite lightweight, under 800 grams. And it's a very well, as you can see, slim, EDC-oriented pack that still has a pretty decent amount of internal organization. And we'll talk all about that in a little bit here. Now, despite only weighing just around 800 grams or so, it's actually made of some pretty solid weather-resistant material, at least here in the X-Pac, and it also packs a pretty good execution as far as this bag is concerned. Now, despite the size, it also has some pretty unexpectedly nice features you don't often see even in some full-size EDC bags. There's 3 grab handles, 1, 2, 3, and a luggage pass-through in here. And you have a quick access pocket, and there's even a little AirTag pocket inside. So it's got a lot of little features that I thought were pretty nice for a bag this slim and compact. Now, there are some areas for improvement though. There are inevitable compromises due to the size. The laptop has to be stored in the main compartment, and that comes with some issues, as you could probably already see here, laptop in here. And there's no water bottle, there's no external side pockets, and in fact, there's not even any first order access other than this top quick access pocket at the top here. It's also very slim in size, which definitely limits what you can fit inside of here just physically, and we'll talk about that. Now, the majority of the organization is located inside of the front lid here. And what that means is it gets very busy and very crowded up here when you're trying to get inside of the bag. I'll talk about that in the main compartment section here. And that makes for some fussy access and a little bit of a lumpy closure from time to time, depending on what you have in here. And while it does have some pretty decent organization, it's a lot less than some of Aer's other bags, many of which are kind of characterized by a very high degree of small item and urban use organization that's very well thought out. Now, this bag just released today on September 2nd, so let's get into it and see what's going on. But before we do that, a quick overview of all the facts of this bag. Now, it's available in one size, 12 liters, and I think just one color. Now, it's available in nylon and X-Pac, and I don't know if there's an Ultra Edition or not. I'll leave a note to that in the description below. This retails for $125 for the base nylon version and $149 for the X-Pac edition. And this is the 12-liter in black X-Pac, and it's available at airsf.com or whatever your local Aer retailer is. Now, there is a couple of disclaimers around this bag. Usually when I test bags, I like to use them for about a month or two at a minimum before I review them. That said, I know there's a lot of interest in this bag that I've seen online, so I decided to release this video right around the time that the bag goes on sale. But what that means is I've only had a chance to use this bag for a few weeks now. So as you can see, it's actually still pretty much quite like new because it hasn't been used that heavily. I mean, 3 weeks I don't consider very heavy use. So maybe consider this more of like a general overview or kind of like first look, more than like an in-depth review like I normally do. Also, I'd like to thank Aer for sending this bag over for review. Even though they sent this over, all opinions are my own. They don't get any input in this video. They don't even know when it's going live. All right, so let's talk about the materials in this bag, and they are, actually generally quite excellent. So you've got some X-Pac VX42 here on the, X-Pac edition. You've got YKK AquaGuard or coated water-resistant zippers, Duraflex hardware for like the plastic, little magnetic buckle on the sternum strap area here. And you've got blue sign approved high-vis orange contrast lining here with ripstop. And overall, just generally excellent materials. I often say that Aer has some of the best materials that I think you can get at a generally available consumer price point. And in the past, they really owned like the Cordura nylon with the YKK coated zipper and Duraflex look. But these days, they're offering even more exotic fabrics. Like they've long had X-Pac versions of most of their bags. This one's an X-Pac. And now, even they got a lot of their bags available in Ultra, which I think is amazing. So the only thing around the materials that I maybe wasn't as big of a fan of is that they're using a little bit of slightly older style of these kind of dangly zipper pulls, rather than like in some of their later, more recent bags, like the City Pack Pro 2 or whatever, they had like these new Hypalon laser cut ones that I think were really great. They didn't dangle or jangle as much. They didn't get caught on them. And that was a problem with some of the older bags that use this style of zipper pull. Is like they could get caught in each other's zipper tracks, or they would, they dangled a lot, etc. Now this one only has a single really major main compartment plus a little quick access pocket, which has a different, lay flat locking zipper. So I don't think the interference and the dangle is so much of a problem on this bag, but just this minor thing that I kind of wish they'd had kept the updated style. Now, in the X-Pac version, which this one is, this bag is very water resistant, though it's not waterproof. So you've got obviously the X-Pac fabric itself, which is highly water resistant. You've got the coated water resistant YKK zippers there. There's not really a lot of points of ingress here. Like even, for example, on the quick access at the top, pocket at the top, they have a little Hypalon zipper garage to kind of cover that point of ingress. With the main compartment, you can run the zippers down to the bottom here, so you have less of an opening up at the top. So generally, I think it's quite nice, nicely water resistant. Though of course the seams are not taped, and you do have eventually water will get in. But I liked it. Now, in terms of the design of the bag, so the thing that really sticks out to you first is just how slim this bag is. Obviously, it's called a Slim Pack, so that makes sense. The second thing that I think sticks out, at least to me, is like how nice and high-tech, sleek looking it is, especially in the X-Pac material way. Like X-Pac itself is kind of like a high-tech fabric here. It looks really nice, I think, with that crisp contrast with the orange and black. This is not unique to this bag. I think most of their X-Pac lineup will have that kind of color contrast, but if you pop open the quick access pocket, you get this little pop of color at the top there. The nice tight handles that kind of just subtly kind of break up the silhouette of the bag when you're kind of looking at it. Plus obviously give you some functionality there. Subtle shaping to like what is otherwise like a flat slab. Like you see, you get a little bit of like dimensioning and patterning up here in the front and in the corners here. So it kind of gives this bag like a nice little gently rounded rectangle with some curves, but still really slim, high-tech looking. I like that. Now, a couple of things that I don't like so much is the bag doesn't stand up on its own. Maybe that's inevitable given how slim it is, and it has a fairly stiff back panel for a bag this size. And also sometimes I found like it will lean up against the wall, but depending on which side you put it, it can slide down. Again, because it's a pretty slim bag, there's just not that much bottom area to get purchase on. But for me, I could live with that just because of, I think it's sort of inevitable for a bag of this kind of slimness. Now the dimensions of this particularly slim bag, 45 by 31 by 8 centimeters, that's 17.5 by 12 by 3 inches for my American friends. It's quite lightweight, 793 grams for the X-Pac version. I think the nylon one's slightly heavier at 831 grams. And it's 12 liters, as I mentioned. Now, maybe the last thing to think about in terms of design here is at 12 liters and really only like, 8 centimeters of thickness, this is probably a small bag for those with larger frames. So that might be something to keep in mind if you're kind of looking at this. Just think about if this might be a little bit too small for your EDC. Okay, so let's now talk about the only real external compartment on this bag besides the main compartment, which is this quick access pocket at the top. Now, the quick access pocket is quickly accessed at the top via this one-way kind of coated water-resistant zipper. It has a little lay flat buckle there, which I like, and it just opens up like this. Sharp orange contrast lining. As I mentioned, the X-Pac, it's a little bit of a different color in the nylon colorway. Now there's not a ton of independent dimension in this pocket here. So if I open up the main compartment a little bit, you can see like this is really all the space that there is for this front quick access pocket, and it's fairly flat. Like there is a little bit of, as you can see, like the corners are kind of popped up to give them a little bit of structure in the patterning. So you do have a little bit of space in here. So it can hold very small, like slightly bulky items, like some AirPod Pros or something like that. But it's not like for your big folded up headphones or whatever. It's not like a front dump pocket like you see on some types of bags here. Opening it up, I'll show you what I have inside of here. I have some AirPod Pros. I've got some eye drops. I've got a chapstick, and then I've got a comb and a hand sanitizer. Now you can fit something like a phone inside of here. This is my iPhone 15 Pro, and I just dropped that inside of there. It will easily fit. As you can see, you'll want to be careful what else you obviously throw inside of there, because there's not only is there no fleece lining on the inside, it's just the kind of, ripstop orange there. It also just sort of, everything will just jumble together. It will close with all of that in there, as you can see, and doesn't bulge out too much, because like I said, there's a little bit of shaping on the side there, but usually I don't carry my phone inside of there. In general, I'm a big fan of quick access pockets, so I'm glad that it exists there. I'm not such a big fan that this one's a little bit more towards the front of the bag. Usually they're up on the top, which I feel is a little bit more secure. So like this limits maybe some of the stuff I would put inside of this pocket, just because it's, kind of easily facing the front. But, this zipper is, one way. It's got a fair amount of friction. You kind of need to stabilize the bag with one hand while you open this. So I don't think that it would be so easily opened without your notice when you're wearing the bag, but just something to keep in mind. I think it's also kind of inevitable because the bag is too slim to really mount that at the top. So the only other compartment on this bag is the main compartment. Now, access to the main compartment, as I mentioned, is via this two-way YKK coated water resistant zipper with the dangly zipper pulls here. It opens up not all the way to the bottom, about this far down, so sort of like a panel loader style. What that means is like some of the stuff that gets down here, which I'll talk about in a little bit, can sometimes be a little bit harder to access, especially depending on what you have going on up here. The zippers are quite smooth, again, just because the bag is usually like, it's a fairly small bag. You'll probably have to stabilize it slightly with one hand or the other, but it's really easy to, run them around. The zipper track doesn't get caught or anything like that. So I quite like that there. And I've already talked about kind of like the dangly zipper pulls. Now, the majority of the organization in this main compartment is on the inside of the front lid. So I'm going to start talking about that first, and then we'll talk about the main compartment. Okay, so now let's go ahead and lay the bag down. This is the front of the bag. This is the top of the bag. And I'm just opening up the front lid like this, top, and then here's the front there. So you can kind of see what everything looks like on the inside there. All this stuff is on the inside of the front lid pocket. Let's start first with like this kind of inner lid rear slip pocket. It actually runs the whole height about to here, I guess, most of the whole height of the inside front lid, and it's just a big slip pocket. Inside of there I have some papers for business, it looks like, man, inside of there. And then it just, you can see, kind of goes all the way down to the bottom, and I have a bunch of stuff at the bottom here. So if you look at it from the top, you can kind of see it's just a flat pocket with no independent dimension per se, but obviously has some flex because of the size. And then now on the bottom I have some other stuff, because there's not a ton of, there is some internal organization obviously, but there's not as much as you would expect in other, or as you would see in other bags. So something I would, for example, normally carry in like a front zipper pocket, like IDs or something like that, I don't have that option here, so it all has to go inside of this area here. So here I have a Rofmia card case with like some business cards. I've got Bellroy card case with some extra ID cards or point cards or whatever. And then I've got, like, for example, the stand-in for like a work ID on a lanyard or something like that. And that all has to kind of go into this front slip pocket here. Now, in some other bags, for example, the Aer Slim Pack, they also have like this front slip area, and I think you could fit like a light shell or something like that inside there. In this one, there's just not that much depth to the main compartment, so I think you would be hard pressed to fit any kind of bulky fabric or whatever in there. Like I said, I think it's often, or as I showed, I think it's often best used for carrying like business papers or non-business papers, if you will, and then a few little kind of doodads at the bottom. Obviously, access down at the bottom gets a little bit finicky because you have to kind of reach down and around, and it kind of gets caught on some of the stuff. Your hand gets caught on some of the stuff you have inside of there. So, things you need to access most frequently, I wouldn't necessarily put inside of there. Another thing that I do sometimes, because I find like it gets really kind of, I don't know, kind of crumpled or a little bit lumpy here, is I will sometimes carry my papers, regardless of business or other, and I put them inside of the tablet pocket. It is a way of keeping your papers a little bit flatter. There. Carrying on, so this is the pocket we were just talking about. Kind of the next pocket to talk about is this zippered pocket here. It runs about half of the height of the organizational pockets in here, maybe about a total of 1/3 of the height of the total lid height here. So it's about, this big, a little right about the same size as like an iPhone 15 Pro in terms of height. Pro Max, excuse me, in terms of height. This is a single zippered pocket, and it's really the only place on this bag, I think, where you can keep anything that you don't want getting lost, or a lot of small things, etc. kind of have to go in here. So actually I found that this pocket tended to get overloaded. It was just, I was trying to put too much stuff in there because it was really the only option that I had. It can carry it, but it gets a little bit lumpy, as I'll talk about, as I've said, and as I'll show you here. Now, inside of here, let's start with what I have inside of here. I have a Evergoods wallet. I've got my keys on a key leash. There's a built-in key leash in here. You have to remove the keys in order to, be able to, use them on your door or whatever. But it's a nice little, basic key leash, bright orange in the X-Pac colorway. With a nice little clip on there, it just really makes it easy to fish your keys out, as you might expect. I have my Rofmia coin pouch, and then that's all I have inside of here right now, simply because it gets a little bit too bulky otherwise. There's a little feature at the top of this, on the inside top of this pocket, where you have a little pocket here for an Aer tag, which I just drop inside of there. I really like that Aer always includes those. And I like their implementation of those rather than like, you know, Bellroy sometimes has them like an little tag hanging out in the main compartment. I like that it's a little pocket tucked away inside of there. And that's really it for what's inside of this pocket. It's flat. There's no independent dimension. Obviously, you have a little bit of flex because of the material and the fact that it's on this, sewn on top of this other patterned pocket, or this other flat patterned pocket. But generally, it's just like a little flat slip pocket to keep your stuff secure. As I mentioned, if you put too much stuff inside of here, and obviously your keys have to go inside of here, it tends to get a little bit bulky up here because you've got, for example, this pocket here with the stuff, and then you got your papers in here, and then you've got like other stuff at the bottom there, and then you've got another row of pockets on top here, so it can get quite bulky. And when I talk about access here in a second, I'll show you why that's kind of problematic. Looking at kind of the last row of pockets here, you have three kind of elastic pockets on the front here, or on the front of these other pockets, I guess, starting from this side. So this is a kind of narrow pocket designed for some pens. I have here a tactile turn pen and a highlighter. Slips right inside of there. You could probably fit up to 3 pens inside of here because it does have a little bit of stretchiness. The next pocket is sized appropriately for a phone, and here I have an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It fits really nicely width-wise. As you can see, height-wise, it is a little bit taller, so I wish this pocket were a little bit deeper, or maybe a little taller, depending on how it is, just so it would, you know, maybe hold this a little bit better, but I think it's fine. As smaller phones obviously will fit more nicely inside of there. And then over here on this last one, this is size for something. You could put a wallet inside of here. I have here my Plotter mini-sized system Ticho, which I really love. And you could also fit like a field notes or whatever else inside of there if you want. It'll fit either if you use Plotter or similar sized ring binder system Tichos. You could use like a mini will fit in here. A mini 5 will fit in here, etc. And that's really kind of it for the organization on this front panel. So kind of turning our attention now to the next set of pockets inside of here. Let's move this temporarily out of the way. You have on the back of the bag, you have a tablet, you have a tablet sleeve here, and you have a laptop pocket here. So inside of this laptop pocket, I have my 14-inch M4 MacBook Pro, and that fits really nicely inside of here. It's padded. This layer is padded here, and it's also padded on the back. It has a nice fleece lining on the back of the laptop compartment, and this part is appropriately padded, and a really good, nice false bottom here. So it will protect your laptop. It will fit up to a 16-inch MacBook Pro. I also checked it will fit like my 16-inch Razer Blade, you know, gaming PC, although that kind of pokes up right up past the edges, but it will fit inside of there. So I think that's quite nice carrying capacity for a bag of this size here. Now the front part of this is a kind of stretchy laptop, or stretchy elastic, and is designed for carrying your tablet. I have here an 11-inch iPad Pro. As you can see, that fits down inside of there. Will easily carry up to like a 12-inch tablet if you want. Now there's no padding on this side. There's padding between the laptop and the tablet, but there's no padding on this mesh side. So you'll probably want to carry this with like a cover. I have here the keyboard type cover, but you'll want to put like at least a portfolio cover, something like that, if you have anything kind of, you know, sharp in the main compartment that might damage it. I don't use, even though, so I think overall this is pretty nice device carry for a bag of this size, but it can get pretty packed up inside of here when you have a laptop and you have a tablet, and then you have some stuff in the main compartment, and you've got stuff in these pockets here, and I kind of mentioned that. You can see here, it closes up. You can carry this definitely, but you can see it's starting to really kind of bulge out against what this bag is capable of. It's really 8 centimeters in depth, and then you got a little bit of extra overload capacity because of the pattern in here, but it's starting to stretch out there, and you feel it when you kind of open it up. Now, obviously, because the laptop compartment and the tablet are mounted inside of the main compartment, it means that you have to kind of open that up every time you want to get into there, which is not as convenient as an externally mounted laptop compartment. It can't be helped in a bag of this size, but that does mean that if you have a bunch of stuff inside here, which you kind of almost invariably have to, like I have this battery, and then I have another thing I'll show you inside of here, like every time you try to get in here, you're actually kind of like fighting sometimes to, like, you know, not have stuff fall out, or you have to kind of, you know, this is a great example, like, 'cause I have at the bottom here on a slim pouch, which I'll show you in a second, and I have to kind of like push like if I just drop it in like this, it stops. I'm actually just caught on what's at the bottom, so I have to kind of like push it in past there. So a little bit of extra friction, just unavoidable, I think, for the slimness of this, and maybe one of the downsides of having that mounted inside of the main compartment. But again, you know, that's just the way it is with a bag of this size here. So the only other thing really to talk about is the main compartment here. Let's start with what I have normally, what I normally carry inside of here. So right here I have my Anker. This is the 25,000 milliamps, I think. 165 watt Anker USB battery. It's really cool. I like this one. It has a retractable built-in USB-C cable, another built-in USB-C cable that doubles as a carrying handle if that's your thing, plus a couple of extra ports here and a display screen. It can simultaneously charge up to 4 devices. It can power like a MacBook, charge a MacBook Pro, iPad Pro, stuff like that. So I find myself kind of carrying and need to charge multiple devices at once, even with a small bag like this. So I often am carrying this thing here. Beyond that, there's just this bright orange internal compartment here. And at the bottom, I found that something like an Aer Slim Pouch, this is a Slim Pouch 2, an X-Pac. I found like if I take this and I just drop this in there, it fits really nicely right at the bottom of the compartment. Now, one thing that I've mentioned a couple of times is that this is a fairly slim compartment. And so if you were to, I think the Slim Pouch 2 or 1, this is the 1, but the 2 is basically the same size, is probably the maximum size of what you can carry in here in terms of depth. So if you take something like the Aer Cable Kit 3, which is for those of you who are carrying a ton of stuff, right? Like it's a significantly thicker than the Aer Slim Pouch. It's not gonna fit. Full stop. It's just not going to fit inside of that main compartment. You can see it's just too thick. So I really think that that kind of emphasizes the point of that this is really for more tightly dialed loadouts here. You have to be consistent and you have to be considerate about what you actually are carrying inside of here. And as I mentioned, like because of kind of like the lumpiness and stuff up here, we got a bunch of things on top, pockets on top of pockets of pockets. You know, you can sometimes struggle to get things at the bottom there, which is why I think like something like a Slim Pouch is really nice. You just pull it up in one motion there. If you wanted to carry something like these are the Sony, whatever they are, I can never remember, WH-XM1000 Mark 6s or 5s or whatever the latest ones are as of 2025, you can, you know, the folding up kind of over the head type earphones, they kind of have to just be stacked on top here. And then if you want to carry like this battery, like you can, it gets quite lumpy. And then you get into the issue, as I mentioned, like when you're trying to like get to your laptop, all of a sudden you got all this stuff just sort of falling or flailing all over the place. So for me, I usually, you know, either would forgo like carrying the iPad or these over-the-ear headphones. I just use like the AirPod Pros or something like that that I can fit in the quick access pocket. Sometimes even I would trade like a smaller battery or not even carry a battery. Like for example, I often carry like a hand cream or like a mini dop kit in my EDC loadouts. I can't carry them in here because there's just no place to put them, which is okay. I think this is a slim bag, so you just need to think about what that implies. Next, let's talk about load carriage here. Load carriage on this bag is actually surprisingly robust for a bag of this size. It starts with these carry handles. There are 3 carry handles on your top and 2 sides, which is quite nice. They are just, you know, the normal kind of like Air style, like a foam core, well padded with a little bit of just a tube of kind of nylon strapping around there. They're very low profile, so they don't stick up as much as they do, for example, on the Aer Slim Pack Pro 2. But they are grabbable with your hands. With gloves, it can be a little bit harder, I think, to get in there. But I like that they're there because it's just so easy to port the bag up. And because it's so like narrow, it's almost like carrying a briefcase. Now, it's not completely inline, so you do get a little bit of camp, but this is 12 liters, so it's not too bad to handle like that. And just very easy to kind of move this bag around. I was surprised and pleased to see a feature like this on here, and they're so low profile that they don't look like sippy cup handles like they can if they stuck out more on some of the bigger bags here. The back of the bag features a very simple, back of the bag features also a surprisingly robust kind of like back panel system going on here. There is a frame sheet inside of here, and it's fairly stiff for a bag of this size, but still flexible. Most of the rigidity is going to come from your devices inside of there. Decently firm support here, and then it's kind of got this standard at this point, I think, Air mesh style that Aer uses, Aer AIR mesh that Aer AER uses. I kind of divided into nominally into 4 quadrants by some of like the things that you got going on here. I feel like given the bag's small size, the thickness is a little bit lower than on some of their larger bags. I didn't actually measure, but I feel like it is. As you might expect, airflow is fairly limited just because of the low profile of this and just in general. But this bag is fairly slim and it's unlikely to hold that much at 12 liters and because of the limits of the depth of the bag. So I found it doesn't lay very ponderously on the back. It's not as sweaty as a bigger bag might be, even on those hot summer days. And it's got decent moisture absorption. It has a luggage pass-through, like a horizontally oriented one, so you can just sit on the canes of the bag there. I personally prefer a vertical orientation, as I've mentioned in the past, but I understand that many in the carry community have a different, albeit misguided, but I accept you for your flaws, perspective, and they prefer this. That's okay. I don't mind it as much on this bag, actually, because it's such a, it's such a small bag that even if you've got it kind of on the canes of your roller bag and you're pulling it, I found it doesn't like weigh so heavily or produce too much torque on there. So that's okay here. Other than its orientation, it's very competent. It's very easy to deploy. It's got a little bit of Velcro here, stays out of the way when you don't need it. So it's kind of a nice little feature to have on a bag of this size. The shoulder straps themselves are the standard Aer shoulder straps with good refinement, slightly smaller just given the size of the bag versus some of their larger bags. Maybe slightly less padded. It was hard to tell. Again, I didn't explicitly measure here. Same standard construction, a little bit of like a little harder layer on here and then some foam and then the standard Aer mesh, same as on the back. Here, slightly ergonomic curve, nothing too aggressive. Attaches to the bag in a standard way with a little nylon strap down to these little triangles. Bottom here. No fancy adornments here other than the sternum strap, which I'll talk about in a second. Adjusts via these standard nylon straps. Also fairly smaller, slightly smaller than you would see on some of the other bags. Built-in strap keepers, which I thought was a nice touch. And then you have the little loops on the end so you can kind of pull it and tighten it up or whatever. Should fit a variety of body types for which a 12-liter slim bag would be appropriate. Again, the lumberjack or the gym homies, that's probably gonna be too small for you, but I think for most mere mortals, it's gonna be all right. Let's talk very briefly about the sternum strap. I'm a member of the card-carrying member of the sternum strap squad. It is a good, competently designed sternum strap. Standard rail attachment system, removable. Magnetic buckle here, easy center orientation, easy to clip and unclip with one hand. Built-in strap keeper and a little bit of built-in elastic strain relief for comfort when you're wearing this. It is notably smaller than the sternum strap on some of their larger bags, but I think that's okay because it's appropriate sized for a bag of this size here. So last thing to talk about is who this is for and not for. I think it's for the urban EDC commuters or students with a very tightly dialed kit. I showed you there's some pretty strict limits on what you can get inside of here just physically. And if that describes you, and you want a bag that's just big enough because you don't like a big bulky thing, and I completely get you, this is a great bag for you. Smaller frame folks looking for a small slim bag which won't overwhelm their frame, that's great. This is a great choice and has good organization to boot for a bag of this size. And I think maybe two-bag travelers with a roller suitcase or a roller luggage, they're looking for a slim backpack that holds just a few plain essentials, can do EDC at the destination, but will still easily fit under the seat in front of you. This is a great slim little thing that will qualify as a personal item on most airplanes, I would guess. Maybe not for anyone with a kind of moderately sized or above loadout. You just will overwhelm the physical capacity of this bag. And before then, it'll be very fussy inside, as I showed you. Folks with a lot of small things, like a lot of little things that you need a bunch of different pockets organized all, as I showed you, this has some decent organization, but less than other airbags. Also, people with chonky things, I showed you the cable kit, or if you're trying to put shoes over it, this is not gonna fit in here. And then finally, the larger frame folks, my lumberjack homies, the swole gym homies, the giants amongst you, this is just gonna be too small for you. So, that having been said, if you're in the market for a bag like this, what are some other bags you might want to consider? So let's start with the Aer City Pack. This is the original V1 Aer City Pack. It is a slim, I think, 16-liter bag that is also quite slim. It's not explicitly called slim, but you can see it is significantly bigger, but it's actually fairly slim here. That has, despite only 4 more liters in nominal literage, has a bunch of extra compartments here. A lot more organization. This is that slip pocket I was talking about. You could actually fit like a small sweater or something like that inside of. External organization, even has like a side water bottle holder, top mounted quick access pocket, all sorts of goodies. I think this is they now have a V2 version. I have the V2 City Pack Pro, which I have previously reviewed on the channel. I don't have the V2 City Pack, a non-pro version. But I'll go ahead and link this in the description below here. I think you can just imagine some of these design cues applied to an updated version of this V1 City Pack. I've done a full review of this V1 version on the channel before. I'll link that in the description below, and then also of this V2 City Pack Pro. And I'll link that in the description below. I think it's just a great choice if you like the slimness of this, but you need something just a little bit bigger, but you don't want to go to the big, bulky 24-liter, whatever. Another Aer choice, this is the Aer Pro Pack Slim. Same size, 12.5 liters, slightly older model, similar dimensions, slightly cheaper. It has, you know, still slim proportions, but you can see more organization kind of going on here, and then kind of like a little bit of a different organization on the inside of the main compartment. It also has a side, very small side water bottle pocket. It won't hold your big Nalgene, but it will hold a slim you know, water bottle, maybe for, this is maybe a little bit more oriented, slightly more upscale off. I think these are both very nice bags and very comparable if you're just kind of looking for a slightly different take on the genre. And then finally, this is the Belroy Melbourne pack. This is the 18 liter. There's a 12 liter available, which would obviously be similar, more similar in size to this slim pack. I previously reviewed this on the channel. I think this one's also probably on its way out, but still available while supplies last. This one's kind of main claim to fame, I think, is this kind of interesting magnetic top opening, and then it does have like a one side kind of fillet thing. It's less organization than the Aer, which I think is generally true for, Aer generally has, I think, some of the higher degree of organization for these EDC bags, but it is a kind of, you know, interesting take, very different kind of fabric and approach to this. I think especially the 12 liter sizes is very small. I think it's really going to be exclusively for fairly small framed folks here. You get a water bottle pocket on it, and a little, you know, back mounted quick access pocket, which I'm not particularly a fan of or whatever. Might be worth checking out, again, while supplies last, if you just want a different take on the genre. And so really that is it. If you have any questions about this bag, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. If I can, I will answer them. And if you have any items or bags you would like me to review, I'll leave those in the comments below. And if I can, I will review them. Thank you very much.